Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Black Ops 6 Warzone so far this year obviously have not been in the best state. We've talked a lot about misstep after misstep with the various things that have happened post season 1. You know, Black Ops 6 launched and honestly was in a decent state. There were certainly some flaws, like the cheating issue was still there, the server issue was still there, but from a gameplay standpoint at least, the game was a lot less buggy, it was a lot less problematic. And generally, the player's sentiment about the game was a lot better. Season 1 comes along, the Warzone integration happens, and everything starts to crumble and fall apart and break left, right, and center, right? And now, we're sort of in this state where they're trying to fix all of these issues and try and navigate through all the problems now, rather than typically if the game would have been a smoother, launch, had it been a smoother integration, it would be more of, hey, let's build on this, keep making the game better and better and better, instead of, oh, redo this, fix this, redo that, fix that, right? And so today I want to go through and, well, yes, we're still focusing on some mistakes and some errors that they've made and some problems there. I want to focus more on solutions. You know, Call of Duty really seriously needs to learn from some of these mistakes. And while we've obviously been pointing out some big ones over the past couple of weeks, I want to focus on maybe some issues that we haven't talked a ton about, you know, post-launch, and offer solutions, that being the key thing here. You know, we've talked a lot of negative about Call of Duty over the past month or so, unfortunately, which I don't necessarily love because that's just not really what I enjoy making content on. Being negative is not all that fun, but sometimes it's necessary to, you know, get a point across, and we've had to get several points across over the course of the past month. So I do want to focus on solutions here today and ideally have that positive impact on the game. And if you want to help out with that, the easiest way to do so is to simply drop a like on the video. It truly does help share it around, get more eyes on it. You never know who from Call of Duty may end up seeing this, and then, like I said, ultimately we can have that positive impact on the game. But mistakes that Call of Duty needs to learn from. I think objectively this year, the idea of all of Black Ops 6 and Warzone being forced to be online is just not a good one. There was already so much concern about this going into the year, and I think a lot of that concern was validated now that we've seen the game in its state post-launch. Everything being forced online means that technically, even when you're playing the single player campaign, you have to be connected online, you have to be connected to the COD servers. When you're playing a solo zombies match, you have to be connected online, you have to be connected to the servers. And then obviously if you're playing co-op zombies, if you're playing multiplayer Warzone, whatever, of course you're online there. But forcing every single element of this game to be online, I just think is really, really strange. This causes situations where you could be in a solo zombies game by yourself and you're lagging because there's packet burst or there's server desync or something. In a solo game by yourself, that should not be a problem, right? Situations where if your internet goes out or if the servers go down or something like that and you're in the middle of playing a campaign mission, it resets your progress. You got to start the whole mission over again instead of just having simply, pause the game if your internet went out, or, you know, if the servers went down, it wouldn't have affected you previously. Like, that just seems like such weird, situations that shouldn't necessarily be a thing, but now they are because of the forced online state. On top of that, I don't know, I just find it very coincidental that the first year that everything is forced to be all online, you're always connected to the Call of Duty servers. The server issues, which have been a very obvious thing for several years, are absolutely worse than they've ever been before. Like, I just feel like that lines up a little too nicely and could potentially, you know, I'm not a game dev, I'm always going to say that I'm ignorant to a lot of the behind the scenes stuff with this, but I just feel like that lines up a little bit too coincidentally, and it may be a big reason why some of the server issues this year are so much worse than what they've been before. So this whole all online thing, I understand why they may want that, but I don't think it actually ends up helping many situations where there's a pause timer in a solo zombies game because they don't want players sitting there for hours on end, potentially adding more stress to the servers as other players do the same. It just seems like a situation that there was concern for pre-launch, and all that concern, like I said, was validated. And it's like, see, this is why we didn't want this, post-launch, right? So that situation, I think, is something that hopefully they learn from and is not something that's forced going forward. Another thing this year that honestly I thought was going to be much more exciting than it turned out to be was the early integration for Warzone. You know, Black Ops 6 launching this year, then only a few weeks, what was it, like three and a half weeks after the game launched, we already had Season 1 in the Warzone integration. The preseason this year absolutely flew by, and we saw a much earlier Warzone integration than we typically see, you know, mid-November as opposed to maybe very early December or even mid-December, you know, in recent years. And while that seemed like, oh, you know, they've got things down this year, they're ready for Season 1, they've had obviously 4 years of development for Black Ops 6, and Warzone seems to be chugging along, and it seems like they're very prepared for it. And well, what do you know? It's just a disastrous integration where the game does not work, and it completely starts breaking the game everywhere the second that the integration in the Season 1 update happens, as I alluded to in the intro there, right? So maybe having earlier integrations because, hey, this is going to be super exciting. There's just going to be no content drought whatsoever. We go straight from launch into Season 1, massive Warzone update. We're just going to ride that wave, right? Well, that all sounds nice in theory. Clearly, that wave came crashing down this year, and it seems like maybe that integration was not ready. And had they pushed that back to the start of December, maybe it's a bit more stable and we don't have as many issues. What if they push it back to the start of the new year, right? Like maybe, you know, a mid-season update that takes place middle of January, second, third week of January, for example. Maybe it's more stable there. It's not nearly as problematic there. I feel like having it so early this year, again, just backfired. Good idea in theory, but it just did not work. And I hope that going forward, it's a lot more, you know, prioritization of stability and performance, and the game launches smoothly rather than, hey, let's drop this early so we can continue to ride the launch hype wave and get as many players on the game in as short amount of time as possible, because it just kind of seemed like that was the end goal here. And I think Jay God referenced it in one of his, you know, critique videos recently, saying, what if Raven kind of knew that this was going to be the situation because they had to launch it so early, and that's why things are, you know, now so prominent of, hey, we're fixing this in Season 2, we got to fix this in Season 3, and we have this much longer fixing roadmap than in typical years because this was pushed so far, you know, forward and so much earlier than it has been in the past. I mean, to be fair, all the integrations have been messy in some capacity, but we really should be learning at this point after having so many integrations, and the COD HQ, which is going to be a segue into my next topic here. But, you know, at this point, there's been a lot of trial and error, and yet errors still seem to be the very obvious standouts from a lot of the integration updates. But you just heard me mention COD HQ. Again, another idea that in theory on paper sounds really cool. All the Call of Duty titles in one place. It's super easy to access all of them. It's easy to transition between multiplayer and zombies and Warzone or going back to an old game or whatever. Another idea that just seems to have backfired. It is incredibly obnoxious from my standpoint, you know, having a bunch of people who play different types of Call of Duty. Some of you really enjoy DMZ still. You're going back, you're playing that frequently. Some of you really enjoy zombies or really enjoy multiplayer. Or maybe you really enjoy last year's multiplayer or Warzone or whatever it is, right? I get a lot of feedback from you guys on the daily about the state of the game, so I'm kind of in a unique position to see all of this feedback and see all this, you know, experience happening in game. And a lot of it comes down to, why is Black Ops 6 getting an update and I have to worry about it as a DMZ player? Oh, because it's an update for all of the Call of Duty HQ. Or, hey, when Warzone sees this update go out, I'm now affected in zombies, even though I don't even play Warzone and I don't even have it downloaded. I still have to download an update file for the base game because it's still all connected, even though it's a separate download for the most part. There's still files that cross over. So even if you're just playing and trying to focus on one specific mode, or even something from an older year of Call of Duty, you're still impacted by the new things happening in COD HQ, which just results in frustration that's not necessarily needed. Again, I think on paper, the COD HQ is a cool idea, but it also wasn't an issue to have an old Call of Duty game downloaded separately. Like if you really wanted to play in the multiplayer title from 2 years ago, or if you really wanted to play DMZ from a few years ago, you could download that and you'll know how much space you have because you know you're going to go back and play an old COD. You could uninstall the new one if you're not a fan of it or whatever the case is, and it wasn't like it was a major issue. So they fixed something, quote unquote, fixed something with the COD HQ that wasn't actually a problem that needed to be fixed. It was change for the sake of change, which has been a frequent, situation here in COD, and most of it hasn't necessarily resulted in great changes as an outcome, right? So still not a fan of the COD HQ. If they're going to learn from any of these mistakes or listen to any of this constructive feedback here, I think COD HQ is the one they're least likely to defer from, if that makes any sense. Like, I feel like they're pretty bought into this and they want to push this as the way forward, right? But just from my POV, I don't really like the whole COD HQ situation. From a casual POV that I get a lot of just based on comments and feedback there, it doesn't seem like it's really well received. I'm just not a big fan of that, and I don't think it unfortunately was executed as good as it sounded on paper maybe. Another weird thing this year with Black Ops 6 was no early access to the campaign in specific. Obviously, this was a big deal back in Modern Warfare 2 first, and then also in Modern Warfare 3 last year. Unfortunately, Modern Warfare 3's campaign just wasn't all that great, likely because of the dev time that game had, only 16 months as opposed to a couple of years for most titles. So the campaign was super short, it felt rushed, and there was a lot of negative feedback on the campaign because of that. And I guess for whatever reason, they kind of associated a lot of that negative feedback with the campaign being available early. Like, maybe they thought, hey, if the campaign wasn't available early, so many people wouldn't have played it, and then we wouldn't have as much negative feedback, right? So they ended up doing no early access this year, which I just think is a bummer in general, because I feel like it takes away the spotlight from some of the story with the game. I always am a big fan of the COD campaigns, and unfortunately, when it all launches on the same day now, same day as multiplayer and zombies and everything, just from my standpoint, I gotta jump right into multiplayer or zombies, start leveling weapons, figuring out strategies, getting information out there for you guys, and I just don't end up having time to play the campaign, as cool as it might be, right? There's a lot of FOMO with not being able to level up fast and have your weapons unlocked or be going for the camos, and so that takes away from the campaign experience, and having that available as like a week early access or even just a few days early access was a nice standalone thing of, hey, I can just focus on this, I can enjoy this, I can get the rewards from this as well, and not be stressed about missing out, on something elsewhere in multiplayer or zombies or whatever else, right? So that just seemed like kind of a weird change this year, not really, a necessary one, but again, they did it and it just didn't seem like it resonated all that well. And then lastly here, while we focused a lot on very broad issues and very broad mistakes encompassing a lot of things, this one is just very specific to multiplayer, but again, I think it's a bit of a step back, and that is the lack of any ground war or large map modes within multiplayer. It is strictly 6v6 or occasionally 10v10 with the new playlist that we've got there, but it's just on all the base maps, and we know all the maps in Black Ops 6 are pretty much small to medium sized, so it's essentially just one style of gameplay that largely includes a lot of spawn die, spawn die, spawn die, right? There's no large scale ground war, fire team, whatever mode in this game, and that's been a big hit lately. Personally, ground war is always my favorite mode in Call of Duty multiplayer. Like, Modern Warfare 2019 Ground War, still some of my favorite multiplayer experiences in the past era of Call of Duty, right? And having that basically not be a thing here in Black Ops 6, I think makes the gameplay experience a bit more limited, a bit more one-dimensional. You don't have that drastically different play style of playing on a large map, having your squad spawn, or spawning on one of the 5 domination flags on a large scale map like that. So instead, it just forces all the gameplay to be very repetitive and very similar, even if you're switching up the modes and whatnot, just because all the maps are roughly the same size. A general layout is very familiar across all of them, and so even though the settings are different, they all end up playing relatively the same, which is kind of a bummer for both longevity and just creativity in gameplay there. But all that being said, those are a handful of mistakes that I feel like Black Ops 6 and Call of Duty have made specifically this year, and hopefully I offered some decent solutions or some decent, navigation into how to avoid those in the future. If you do want to help share this video around to get more attention on these issues, a like rating truly seriously does help out. And of course, if you are new to the channel, you want to guarantee that on a daily basis, you're always in the know for everything going on in COD, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. That way you'll always know whenever I post a new video. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.